me start the recording so that we have that. Cool. So, and you can proxy Ian's issue, I guess.
Yep. So we have anything else, anything quick before that? Because it's going to be, I'm going to struggle to describe it even.
I mean, I think I would probably just get into it and we can talk through it from there.
You probably saw it in the API channel.
Yeah.
We have the 10-year anniversary event coming up, which is going to be a virtual event in March. And he'd like to contact all the people who have submitted data in the UK and ask them to participate in that part of it. So he tried to, he got went into the database and tried to see if he could get the user IDs for everybody who is, for all the data points that are geographically within the UK, and couldn't find any user IDs. Even if he has the user IDs, I'm sure he can't get an email address.
Not from the export. Yeah, we would have to give him like a snapshot of the main DB for that.
Right. Okay. And I'm not sure that's even actually the best thing to do. I was able to draw a circle around the UK and just get all the data points that are and the associated bGeigie uploads and things. But that seems like a kind of a crude way to have to go through and list off, because that wound up with 75 pages of data points at 25 data points a page. So I think it's about a dozen or so uploads, so it can't be more than a dozen people.
Yeah,
but somewhere he's going to have to convert that to email addresses. Well, or not. I mean, I could go to the upload page and click send a message to the uploader without actually having to have their email address.
And do we just want like anyone who's ever submitted a point from UK? Like there isn't sort of any qualification to say that like, some percentage of their points have been in the UK? Because I mean, I think if we're okay saying like anyone who has ever submitted a point from within this circle, I'm pretty sure we can construct a query to pull that list of email addresses.
I think he's just looking for a representative group to kind of hope somebody will kind of join in a meeting like this or an event and sort of talk about their experience and why they're participating. I don't know exactly what his agenda is, but it doesn't seem like it's a terribly big request. But stepping back and realizing that this is not an unreasonable request, and that somebody like him could not manage our API well enough to even get a list of user IDs is a problem. I mean, my whole interface and my whole use of the API is through the website. So API at safecast.org, and I just type things in the address bar and hope the response comes back. I don't think that's how this is actually done, is it? I mean, you use some app or some program and write things in a language.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, if I was going to do it, I would just run SQL against the database that we have here.
So is SQL an app, or I thought it was?
No, this is the language. Yeah, so it's all the data goes into the app is called Postgres, right?
Okay.
That's where all the data lives. And so if we wanted to, and like we don't include this in the Tarball exports, I think intentionally, because there's probably like a little bit of a mild privacy concern if we put people's email addresses and things like that.
Oh, we definitely will not put email addresses in there. We want but user IDs, is just a number that's, and you want to be able to do that so that you can filter on, I don't know, quality. If you decide that certain user has a high propensity for poor data or less qualified data, or the same kind of thing we do with the automatic acceptance of uploads. We look at how many they've sent, if they've ever had any rejected. Some people have a tendency to put metadata in that's confusing. We asked them to write the height and they write the altitude, and they're up in the mountain, and so they put 5,000 feet, and it's so. People want to be able to exclude certain IDs or certain devices if they know they're outside their bounds.
Yeah, we do have the device ID, but as far as like the public exports go, that's as close as we get. Like we don't. I'm just taking a look at it right now. Here,
are there even user IDs? Because I think he said that there were no user IDs even included
in the export. Yeah, there's just device IDs. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so I mean, we could change that potentially. Here, let me share screen. because I'm pretty sure the main tarball is generated from here. And so you can see we have device ID in there. We have the import ID, which is like the upload ID. So you could use that to like potentially trace back, like for each one, you could go grab the import from the API and then that would tell you the user ID. But we do in the main table, we actually have a user ID here that I'm fairly certain come up with a way to do the exports that actually gives a more complete picture of the data. Like right now, basically we have a query that we run and we spit out a bunch of CSV. And so like the only thing that you get is what we decide to put in that CSV. And so one of the things that I've been thinking is, wouldn't it be great if instead we, did like a public RDS snapshot, for example, maybe clean it up a little bit, maybe like take out the password hashes or something like that to try to avoid potential security problems. But I think it could be really beneficial for people to say, instead of here's a tarball, like here's an RDS snapshot that anyone who is able to sign up for an AWS account can just go ahead and spin up their own database with like an exact copy of all the same data that we have and do whatever the heck they want with it. And then we don't have to worry about, updating export jobs or adding new export jobs. And that's honestly, the export jobs are like one of the most expensive things as far as like database cost. Like the reason we have to keep the database as large as we do is because we run these exports that take hours to produce. And if we ran smaller databases, they would take much, much longer to produce. So yeah, if we did something that was more like a nightly snapshot or something like that, then someone like Ian or whoever could spin up their own database with the same data, as big as they need to do whatever they want to do with it.
Well, they could do that from the CSV. Also, they just would be limited to whatever we put in the file.
Whatever we happen to put in, yeah. So those are kind of like the two options. We could certainly keep piecemeal updating the CSVs to support the case. Or I think it'd be interesting to look into a different export procedure that would allow people to do whatever the heck they want with the data.
But Matt, can't we have a read only for a specific user? If we make, for example, guest go into the SQL database and then they can, with the GUI, they can look at the data and can make queries.
Yeah, potentially. The one thing we tried to do that with a replica. We tried to do that with a replica, but we found out that for larger queries, it doesn't work. Like Postgres basically errors out because if you run like a heavy query on the replica, I don't know all the ins and outs in it, but it seems like basically Postgres sort of says like, oh, hold on, we can't do that, or the replicate is going to fall out of date. So like the query just sort of fails out because Postgres doesn't want to potentially break the replication. So we could do like a read-only user on the main database. The downside of that is that if someone runs something really heavy, they could take down the website. So it's another potential failure vector if we, yeah, which is not great. So not to say, it'd be fixable, like someone could jump in and just terminate the query that's causing the problem. But yeah, if we just stood up like a read-only user, I'm fairly certain Postgres doesn't have any way to say like deprioritize the user or something along those lines. Like I don't think there'd be anything stopping that user from using all of the database resources, and then the API would be offline.
So assuming that I can, through some methods of this universal database tool that Rob just linked or whatever, I can get a list of user IDs and say it's I don't know, a dozen or even 2 dozen. What would we do next? We don't want to, send people a list of the email addresses, but we don't want to, I don't know, what would be the next step if he wanted to? I assume he wants to look through them and see if he recognizes some of those people,
yeah,
or usernames for people he knows, and that might be good candidates to make a presentation. I don't know.
So I don't know if we have any sort of we don't really have any sort of like sign up agreement that states what we can and can't do with people's email addresses. But I think in terms of playing it safe, what might be the best thing to do is like for us to pull those email addresses and probably send an email on Ian's behalf to just let people know, like similar to what we would do with like a newsletter, right? And basically say, hey, here's more information about this project. If you would like to get involved, please contact here or something like that. Like that seems like it would be non-sleazy use of email.
Well, we don't want to send out a blanket email. If it were only 5 or 6, I would assume that he would want to write a personal message to each of them.
Yeah, and you might even know
I'm not
them.
sure
Yeah.
if it winds up being 60, then that becomes a little bit too many to do that with. I'm not quite, like I said, I'm not sure exactly how many it's going to be yet. I know I've got was it 800, not 800, 200 uploads.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's going to be a big number.
Yeah.
And maybe he might be just looking for a particular subset. If somebody's obviously normally uploads in other places and they've got a drive in the UK, they were there on vacation, he's probably not even going to bother them. He's looking for researchers and heavy contributors, I would guess, to or maybe somebody who's a contributor in the UK who's got an angle because their work and their research is not related to our main mission, and therefore would be an interesting story for how they're using our data and why they're contributing.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, I think in the very short term, it's just a question of running the query to figure out the list of email addresses and then kind of going from there. And like you said, if it's a very small number, then probably we can just work with Ian to reach out personally to each of the people involved.
I'm gonna look at see if I can generate a list of user IDs or something, or maybe even, I think I can get user IDs. I think that's, at least probably the screen name. What do we call the
offline?
Well,
but it should be pretty straightforward.
He put his request in the API channel over a week ago. And then last week I was hoping to talk about it in the API meeting, but it didn't go off. And then he and I discussed it some later this past weekend because I wanted to know what he was.
What coordinates do you have, by the way? Let me. Yeah, you said you drew a circle around. Like, do you have like a lat long and like a distance in mind?
I do.
Already?
I do. Yeah. I don't have it. It's probably. Let me look at my windows. It's probably in a window behind the Zoom thingy here. There it is. How do you want it? I mean, to copy and paste it into the. How do I do this? I've got Google Earth loaded up with what I did is if you look at the UK. Mm-hmm. And if you center on the Isle of Man, the very north east tip of it, I can get you the lat long for that. And then a circle of 540 kilometers, runs right down through the English Channel and includes all of the UK and Ireland.
Cool. Well, that sounds pretty promising.
So that's I worked that part out, and like I said, and I put it in a post to Ian. So I have the coordinates and the diameter. Which does that, but I don't have it right where I can paste it right now. At least I'm not finding it. It must be here somewhere. Hang on. Okay. Oh, there it is. It's in the query. I've got the window open on the API.
Yeah, that'll work.
Let's see what am I on here. Yep. Captured before and filter distance. Here we go. Okay, you want me to? How do you want me to do this?
Whatever's easy.
There's an awful lot of extra stuff, like the captured before and stuff in there, and all you really need is the latitude and longitude. Yep. Here we go. Let's see if this will paste. Copy, Control C, and go to chat to everyone. Paste. Let's see how that comes out. That's it.
Cool. That should work. I'll just put that there for now. I don't think it'll be difficult at all to just basically pull a list of email addresses that have ever submitted a point that falls in these bounds.
And technically, he asked me for stuff in the UK, so I should generate another circle around Ireland and exclude that, but I just decided not to.
This is a good start. And then whoever, it might be me. I'm kind of curious, so I'll probably play with it a little bit today. Okay. Whoever ends up playing with it, I think like PostGIS even has reverse geocode, which I think is what we would need. Is it reverse geocode or geocode? I always forget which way is which.
Well, and I don't know how to craft a query that filters by political boundaries, which is kind of specifically what he asked. But
it's geocode is the one I'm thinking of. Is PostGIS might actually be able to geocode just like UK into a at least a point in a radius. I don't know for sure if it would give
well,
you.
and he
country
couldn't have
boundaries or not.
asked for a more difficult jurisdiction, because the whole, you know, England, Great Britain, UK, you know,
Yeah.
is like the most exotic, you know, contradiction of what the different definitions are. And
I remember because he sent this one, and I was looking at this, and it's funny that some people called out and they're like, why is France so large? Like, why is the lower left corner of France down in South America? And it's, well, it's because it's yeah,
French Guiana.
French Guinea, right? Guiana right there. Yeah. So basically, this is country bounding boxes, which are all squares at the utmost extent of the territorial domain, which in some cases is huge.
Well, imagine if you had a temporal component, you needed to get, you know,
I know.
you know,
Yeah.
You needed to get like Great Britain in 1860.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the points move over time. Yeah.
Right.
Crazy.
And you know, I drew a circle around, but in our query, does it actually filter by radius or by a rectangle?
It's a radius. Yeah. That I can
Neat.
tell you.
Much more calculation intensive, but neat.
Well, PostGIS doesn't it's either way. PostGIS can work with it. That's sort of the deal. You know, it does all the optimizations and things like that on the back end, so you don't have to worry too much about you know, whether or not you want a circle or a path or a box. Yep.
Okay. Any other issues up this week?
Yep. Here's one of those example functions, right? So you can see it uses std within is the name of the function.
And it uses the 2-letter country codes, which are whose country codes does it use? Because it doesn't use a TLD. It doesn't look like it uses.
This is country codes. This is just point and distance.
Okay.
So the country codes.
That's a geographic boundary, not a political boundary.
Exactly. Yeah. But it does
there's a list of them right there.
Yeah, this is not PostGIS those. It's just it's actually kind of funny. I used to work with this guy. When I saw his name, I'm like, Graydon, really? I didn't realize he had a list of bounding boxes public. But here, PostGIS geocode country name. And so it's got support for addresses to points, but I don't know for sure if it has support for like a country name that it could give you. Yeah, it looks like it's all point based. So you can give it like an address, and it has an internal table where it knows how to look up the mailing address and resolve that to a point.
Too bad it doesn't do open location codes.
I think with Blues in they have that. They use that. Up the Node Hub. They find out the location and they figure out exactly where it is.
Yeah. So we could ask what database.
Do they deliver that as a latitude longitude, or they deliver it as an OLC, or what?
Well, I think for that it comes in as part of the data payload from AirNote.
Okay, because I'm a big booster of open location codes these days.
Yeah, you could ask Greg.
To the point that I painted one on my roof.
I remember that.
It's in Google Earth textures now.
Yes, we saw that.
Yeah, so we get this, which is like location name Tokyo, location country JP, location zone. That comes in from Node Hub. Obviously, that doesn't help us with any of the bGuide uploads, but Node Hub does have some of this information from some source. I don't know. It could be tower based though, is the thing, because like they know which
it
tower.
Is tower based.
Okay, yeah, and that simplifies it because each tower is in a specific country for ostensibly a fairly long period of time. So,
but according to the information, mine tower is 45 kilometers away. It's going to be a very strong tower if it's going to get that far.
That's pretty unreal. So.
In rural areas, they try to make them, they're pretty sparse. Yeah. I'm surprised you can get that much distance though.
No,
anyway, so I mean, in terms of other things to talk about, obviously this that I have up is a pretty hot topic. That I think we have this dashboard worked out most of the way that we want it at this point.
Yeah, I think so.
I was looking at inverting. I was looking at inverting the legend. I have a PR that like mostly
Yes,
works, but I
that
just
will
need to finish it.
that will be great if you could do
Yeah.
that.
Oh, so you
It
want
does-
the higher numbers on the top and the lower numbers down?
Yes.
Yeah, that would make
That would
seems
make more sense, wouldn't it? I don't know why they did it this way by default, but and there's no option to invert it. So I have a PR open that'll give us a switch to flip the order, which I think maybe should be the default, but I won't force it on people.
Well, on the other hand, you can think of what cases where, you know, lower is better, you know, like, I don't know,
True.
times in a race and things. And in
Yeah.
this case, air quality, definitely lower concentrations is better. So
Yeah.
at the top, it's not terrible.
Yeah.
You're looking at, you know, better being higher up on the legends.
True. Yeah. Does up mean good or does up
Assuming
mean
you want lower particles in your air, and that's your definition of better, which I think is pretty safe.
It wouldn't surprise me because I mean, this is really like an operational tool. They probably picked this order for something like that reason, where because people were like plotting error counts, for example, where things were in better shape if you had lower error counts and
Right.
worse shape if you had more. So cool. And then I think Emre has been working on a like a mobile friendly version of the device stories page, which I'm hopeful that we can use in place of this eventually, because you know, I mentioned on the channel once or twice, like keep in mind this is a general purpose off-the-shelf tool that we're using here. You know, if we have our own page, it enables us to do things like show instructions if we don't have any data, or allow the user to actually pick whether or not they would like metric units or non-metric units or that sort of thing, whereas like a lot of that sort of stuff is not within the scope of what Grafana is trying to do. So
But the good thing is we can zoom in and out, and that it's going to be hard to do in on the mobile app.
yeah. Well, you know, I think let's get a proper page up, and then the page might end up linking off to this. But it'll at least give us a.
So who arranged this this template? Why is where are the boxes where they are and what they are? Is that us?
We did it together.
Yeah, it's all us.
Matt,
Yeah.
Ray, and me,
Yeah.
Because I see temperature C and temperature F are like not adjacent.
Yeah. We have a hard time
they
agreeing
are-
on these
they
things.
They are in the mobile under each other. We have to.
Yeah,
set-
mobile renders left to right, top to bottom. So
Okay, so it's FC, and there's no way to do a temperature chart where you have like degree, or you different two lists on the same scale, because they're obviously the same data. You could just put like degrees C down the left side of the chart and degrees F on the other side, or
nope.
even superimpose them. I mean,
Yeah, that gets back to what I was saying. Is it's not like Grafana is built to be a general purpose operation graphing tool.
and what about the possibility of clicking on these and getting more information about the sensor providing it? Because, for instance, let's take temperature. The temperature we've been discussing, the caveats on that it's not, you know, it's the temperature inside the enclosure, which in a solar powered device is more subject to, you know, sun heating than something that's in the shade. So we don't know that would actually, how well that would track with, I don't know, official meteorological reports of the temperature.
Yep.
Barometric pressure is probably, again, has an offset because it's not corrected for altitude. It'll show the right trend line, but again, it should be, you might want to, normally barometric pressure is adjusted for altitude and projected down to sea level at that location. And I don't think we're doing that.
Yeah, and that's not, I would advise against trying to push that sort of stuff into Grafana. It's not, you know, it's a handy tool. It's not meant to be, you know, panacea of environmental.
Well, but you should, there should be a way for people to determine if they hover over it or click on it or something to see that, you know, just a note, barometric pressure, unadjusted. You know,
yeah, which, I mean, we could. It's, you know, it's easy enough to put unadjusted in the title right here. You know, like
yeah,
that stuff is simple.
That's the normal terminology for that one in English, but I don't know what it is, you know, how it translates, or what the equivalent terminology would be for other things.
But understanding that distinction, I think, requires an explanation of what the adjustment is. I mean, some people are going to know that, but most people, I didn't know that until you started talking about it. I mean, it's obvious once you start talking about it, but
right. Yeah, and if you're in an airplane, everybody knows about it because you need to know where the ground is, not where some pressure level is. So that's why, you know, airports always broadcast their what's called their barometer, which is not actually the barometric pressure, it's the adjustment, the offset.
Mm-hmm.
So what the pressure would be at sea level at their location if you could bore down to the ground and get to that altitude at that location.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, so
things like tidal adjustments
has that kind of a caveat on it that we should have at most a click away for the people who aren't familiar.
Yeah.
You know, because humidity too, you know, it's a relative humidity or absolute humidity. I can't think of one of these measurements that doesn't have some kind of caveat on it where it needs some, you know, some understanding.
Yeah.
Maybe we can make a link to all this data. So not only by hoovering, but if you go to the bottom in the links, we can make some notes there.
Yep.
Yeah, and it's hard to find. I mean, if you go to the Wikipedia page on any of these things, you wind up with just paragraphs and paragraphs of history and caveats and technology. And the ordinary user just wants the, make sure you recognize that this is the pressure, gauge pressure versus absolute pressure, as opposed or altitude adjusted. So.
Yep. Cool. Yeah, we could definitely, if there was a good documentation, we could certainly, we have a little, we do have support for text boxes. They're not dynamic text boxes, but so we could, if we had a document that we could link to, we could put a link down there. And I think that the bigger thing on my mind is when we can get to having like a mobile friendly version of the device stories page that embeds some of these graphs and then links off to the full dashboard. It allows us to be a lot more flexible about how we display these things. Like we could start doing more things like, okay, they're logged in, they're coming from the US, they probably want Fahrenheit instead of Celsius. Let's show them Fahrenheit until they tell us otherwise. This is the sort of space that we could do that kind of stuff. We're not going to get that stuff over on Grafana. So,
that one is universal enough that it may have a chance of actually being becoming a general tool for not just us. If you look at irradiation data and you want to put it in microsieverts or REMS, that's pretty specialized, and we can't really expect them to create an option for that. But temperature, I mean, I've noticed that on my Google Maps, it offers the weather over on the right-hand side now in F, C, or K.
Interesting.
Kelvin is not, Kelvin's is not it is the standard, SI unit. So, and it sort of more talks about how easy it is to make that conversion, because the conversion from C to K is strictly an integer offset, or actually not integer, it's a fixed offset. 270.25 degrees or something. So.
So anyway, I haven't taken a look at this yet. I don't know if anyone has, but I think it'll be a good place to start getting a little bit more customized in how we show the data. And then we can reserve this for more, custom explorations and stuff like that. Or, see where we want to draw the line between one or the other. But like this, we're never going to have the facility to say, like, if someone links here with, I'll just dump in like a bogus number. We don't have an easy way to say, oh, we don't have any data for you. Here's some instructions to make sure your device is set up properly.
It shouldn't say, it looks like the data is missing, as opposed to it should say a 404 equivalent, that's invalid, or some kind of a.
It's going to be much easier to do here than here.
Guidance,
So.
And what about the possibility of normalizing scales? Because one of the things we've done on previous iterations is that we try to pick a scale for the radiation measurements that are the same pretty much across the geographic region or the whole globe, so that you can go from one to the other and get a relative comparison. Because if the graph goes across the middle, all the time, you have to pay attention to the numbers on the scale of the graph. And when you're looking at the scale as the data to search for, a graph is not appropriate. So the way we've done that the way we did that in the past radiation data was we just picked a scale that represented all of the sensors not in Fukushima, not near Daiichi anyway, and just scaled all of that, so that places like Los Angeles and whatever were down near the bottom of the graph, like Rome was near the middle. Obviously Okuma was off the top of the chart. We've discussed that problem, but at least it allows people to put two cities adjacent or in two separate windows next to each other on their desktop and look at them and say, oh, okay, this one's bigger than that one, without having to look, oh, they're both in the middle of the graph, which one's got bigger numbers, and read the little text in the corner.
Yeah. I think this is, again, the sort of place that we'll be able to do that. The Grafana is just going to scale according to the data or according to a fixed minimum maximum for all.
Right. It seems to take it,
so.
well, except for the one that says charging seems to go off scale, but all the others seem to be basically the top and bottom is min max.
Of the data, yeah.
Well, no, battery voltage is around the middle. I'm not sure.
For any panel, you can basically tell it what the max and min should be, or if you don't, it will scale to whatever the data is in a given time frame. So just to give you an example, like if I zoom in here, you'll see that the scale changes to match the smaller temperature data, whereas if I'm more zoomed out, it changes the scale to give me the range.
And what does it do? What does it do when
you? Rob was saying something, and I don't want to get too far away from it. What were you saying, Rob?
I forgot. Sorry.
I'm sure.
What happens when you compress in time so that there's no longer a pixel available for every data point?
I remember what I said. It's the charging is only on or off. That's all. It's not off scale.
Okay.
That's fine.
So charging is binary.
Yeah, binary.
Yeah, whether or not it's charging. I see.
Yeah. So when you compress time, what'll happen is it'll basically select a different interval. And so you can see, here I'm getting, looks like 1 hour intervals. And then basically, because we're computing the average of, all of the temperature points over that interval, you'll basically start getting, because you don't have enough pixels, so it'll just give you the average value.
It combines them.
Yeah. And you can tell it to do like a max or a min or something else. It's up to you.
What if the data is really noisy?
Like jumping around, like.
Well, you look at that temperature, you can still see, the day and night cycles. But if you had 5 years of data, you might not be able to see that. And does it, does it maintain a visibility of essentially the range? I mean, does it become a blur? I mean,
I think at that point
it becomes a blur.
Yeah.
That's good, because that kind of shows you what the range is.
Yeah, I think what you could do if you knew you were going to do that, I mean, we could give people access to this easily enough. The thing that I often do in that case is plot max, min, and average. So that way I see my average line, but I can also see if like max goes crazy, but the average doesn't reflect the max, then I know I had, probably some outlier point in that space, but I can still see it because the max will jump up.
Temperature is a good one for that, because when you look at it on with a 1 day, all you see is a big trend, maybe some ups and downs as clouds go over. But then if you look at a week, now you can see the day and night cycle. But you start to look at, say you looked at, say, 20 years, suddenly you see the domination of the yearly, so the annual cycle becomes, a kind of sine trend. So there's so many scales of data in on that range. In the radiation data, the scales are very different. The second to second data has a lot of noise in it. The data of over the course of a day does not. Over the course of the year, now hopefully if it's somewhere that was contaminated, we see a trend. And that's one of the things we're going to want to see at the 10-year anniversary, is to find sensors that have an obvious change trend over the time that the sensors have existed.
That's why we want to have the data in there. My main point really should get all the data in ingest. If that's, I know it's a big problem, but it's a big
job because we want to I don't know, when is the earliest fixed sensor? Would have been like the DIY Geigers we did in November, or maybe as early as August.
We're 2 minutes away from recording being from 2 minutes away from the shutdown.
Well, we've done a lot of good stuff here already today.
Yep. Cool.
Good to see everybody. I'm going to take off. It's dinner time for me.
Yeah, sounds good. Thanks for joining us, Angela.
Thanks everybody.
Thanks for joining. Okay. Bye-bye, everybody.
Yeah. Bye. All right. Talk to you all soon.
Okay. Talk to you later.